Good morning, students. In last class, we have discussed regarding the respiration in details. Today, we will discuss some points regarding the respiration in plants and animals. So, first of all, we would like to tell you some points regarding the respiration in plants. So, we are just going to see a simple diagram of any plant. Okay. So, the respiration in plants and ultimately respiration means breathing, how the oxygen will intake inside the plants. So, how many ways they can intake? As I mentioned in the diagram, this is stomata, these are lenticles, and they are the root hairs. Okay? Now, first of all, I will tell you regarding the root hairs and lenticles, then after details in the stomata. So, root hairs, as you know, before sowing the seed, we are plugging the field to make the soil porous. हम लोग सीड डालने के पहले जो जमीन को जोतते हैं, हल चलाते हैं, ताकि जो सॉइल है वो पोरस हो जाए. Okay, so the soil get more and more air trapped inside the soil particles. So root are taking these trapped airs inside the soil particles. If the flood occurs, the air will not remains inside the soil and the whole plant become rotten. आप देखते हैं अगर बाढ़ आती है तो सारे पौधे सड़ जाते हैं. क्यों? बिकॉज रूट को ऑक्सीजन नहीं मिली. Right? So root are respires with root hairs, pores in the root hairs, and they take the trapped oxygen inside the soil particles. Next, some plants have the broken bark. छाल होती है ना, छाल फटी हुई सी. So broken barks, and these are termed as the lenticels, right? So very little amount of oxygen are intake by these lenticels also, but majority oxygen are taken by the stomata, as we know in photosynthesis. 6 plus 6H2O, sunlight molecules come there. This is chlorophyll molecule makes glucose plus oxygen. This is photosynthesis reaction, and in respiration, this is photosynthesis. In respiration, it is just vice versa. So, in photosynthesis, water molecules are intake by the roots, water molecules as well as the air. And CO2, carbon dioxide molecules intake from the atmosphere, okay, and then make the glucose molecules, and then they release the oxygen molecules to the atmosphere. Is it clear? During the daytime, photosynthesis occurs. It needs the carbon dioxide for making its food, release the air. During the night, respiration also occurs during the day, and the carbon dioxide releases during the respiration, it is utilized in the photosynthesis. So carbon dioxide will not remove outside during the day, only oxygen will remove out. During the night, photosynthesis will not occurs, only respiration will occurs. So it will release carbon dioxide in the atmosphere but not oxygen. So the exchange of gases occurs through the oxygen, through the stomata. Now, how this oxygen or carbon dioxide will move to all the body? The simple method, that is diffusion. By diffusion, this oxygen or carbon dioxide move to the other plants of the plants and plants parts of the this plant. The diffusion means oxygen will move where it has lesser oxygen. Okay, so it moved there. And similarly, the carbon dioxide. So according to the diffusion, movement of the molecules from its higher concentration to its lower concentration. So the higher concentration of oxygen occurs in the atmosphere compared to the plants. So oxygen will easily move to the inside the plants. And at the night, carbon dioxide concentration is more in plants than the atmosphere, so carbon dioxide will move outside. During the day, carbon dioxide outside the plant, inside the plants, these all carbon dioxide are utilized in photosynthesis. So carbon dioxide concentration is lesser inside the plants than the atmosphere because the carbon dioxide release due to the respiration is utilized in photosynthesis. So carbon dioxide concentration is lesser in plants than the atmosphere. Then carbon dioxide will move from the atmosphere to plants. So this is the way. Next, about the other organism. Respiration in animals. Suppose unicellular animals such as amoeba, paramecium, euglena, these all animals will intake and produce or output the carbon dioxide by simple diffusion method. Okay, suppose it will release the carbon dioxide and take the oxygen simply by diffusion method. The next one is so move with the diffusion. Next, cutaneous. Cutaneous respiration. Cutaneous means through skin. Those organisms who have moist skin and living in the water catchment areas, these animals will respire through their skin as earthworm, leech, and frog also. So they will all respire through the cutaneous respiration. Next one is tracheal. Tracheal respiration. Trachees. These are the pores present in the insects through which they will respire. And the next one is bronchial respiration. Bronchi means simply they will respire by gills, and the example of bronchial respiration is majority faces, and the last one is pulmonary respiration. Pulmonary respiration through lungs, right? And the example of the large terrestrial animals. So again, some points regarding the different types of the respiration. Number one is the diffusion by unicellular organism. Next one, cutaneous respiration by moist skin in earthworm, leech. Tracheal respiration in insects by trache and spiracles. Bronchial respiration by gills such as fishes, and pulmonary respiration through lungs such as large terrestrial animals. There are also certain special organs for the respiration as the trachea, lungs, gills. So we should know them also as respiration through book lungs. These are the special respiratory organs in scorpion and spiders. Then after book gills, book gills in king crab or lemurish, and then pulmonary sac, pulmonary sac in pyla, lateral gill slits, lateral gill slits in some human beings. So we have studied that skin act as the respiratory organ, skin, gills, lungs, trachea or spiracles, and there are certain other important respiratory organs like book lungs in scorpion and spiders, book gills in king crab, pulmonary sac in pyla, lateral gill slits in some bony fishes. And now, respiration or breathing in human being. Breathing in human being. So, it is very easy to understand because you people know how you are smelling or breathing. So, this is nostril and this is nasal passage. Okay, this is nasal passage, and here ultimately this nasal passage opens into the trachea, trachea. This trachea is covered with rings of cartilage. The reason behind it, as if you blow the air in balloon, okay, then what happens? Balloon is blown over, and when you remove it, the air will blown away from the balloon, and the wall of balloon will collapse, right? Because vacuum cannot be created, right? So, if the rings of cartilage will not attach into the trachea, then whenever you exhale the air, again the trachea will collapse. Okay? To prevent from the collapsing the tracheal wall, a rings of cartilage are present in the tracheas. Okay? Further, this trachea opens into the primary bronchi. This primary bronchi will opens into the secondary bronchi, and this secondary bronchi further tertiary bronchi, and then to bronchioles, and then alveoli. This is the further division and redivision of the nasal passages or lungs. First of all, this is the fifth vertebra. Fifth vertebra. The trachea comes from the nasal passage to the fifth vertebra. Then, immediately after the fifth vertebra, this trachea divides into the right trachea and left trachea. Then, after this tracheal system divides into the bronchi, means like this. This is the branching. Again, it will branch, again it will branch, and then this means branching and rebranching of the pulmonary shaft, that is the trachea. Then primary bronchi, it further branched into the secondary bronchi, it further branched into the tertiary bronchi, then again branched and makes a small chamber like structure, that is bronchioles, and this smallest chamber again make smallest sac-like structure or chambers that are known as the alveoli. Okay, so when we intake the oxygen molecule, so what happens? We have to think over it, right? This is the blood vessels. Blood vessels, it carries the blood from body to the lungs, from heart to lungs, okay, and it has higher carbon dioxide concentration, higher carbon dioxide concentration, and less oxygen concentration. The blown air, it has higher oxygen concentration and lesser carbon dioxide concentration. So what happens here? When this blood reaches to the membrane of alveoli, the diffusion will occurs. The gases move from its higher concentration to its lower concentration. Again, here we should think regarding it. Who have the higher concentration of oxygen? Obviously, lungs has higher concentration, blood has lesser oxygen concentration. So oxygen will diffuse inside the blood from the lungs. Okay, in bloods, carbon dioxide concentration is much more than the lungs. So carbon dioxide will diffuse out into the lungs, which will be further exhaled from the outside the body. Once again, the inhaled air. Inhaled air. Exhaled. So inhaled air has high oxygen concentration, low carbon dioxide concentration. Exhaled air has or blood has less oxygen and high concentration. Okay, so oxygen will move inside the lungs and carbon dioxide will move into the lungs and ultimately out of the body. So this is all about the respiration of plants, a small organism, and higher organism. One more thing, how the air will get inside and outside. We came to know that the lungs has higher oxygen concentration than the bloods, so oxygen molecule will move from lungs to blood, carbon dioxide from blood to lungs. But so this is the diffusion process. But how the gas move inside the lungs? There is one thing. What? This is sternum and this is abdomen. So, as we know that the air will move from high pressure, air moves from high pressure to air will move from high pressure to low pressure. It is always. Actually, what happens when we will breathe the airs? So, this sternum will slightly rise out and up. Sternum, that is the intercostal muscles. Intercostal muscles will move sternum slightly outside and up. Abdomen relaxed or stressed. Then what happens? Ultimately, this just slightly outside and upward, and abdomen get relaxed. Okay. So what happens? Ultimately, the volume of lungs increases. If volume of lungs increases, it means pressure decreases. If pressure decreases, then automatically the air outside from the body rushes into the lungs. Once again, intercostal muscles stretch the sternum, which will move slightly outwards and upwards. The abdomen stretched become slightly just suppressed then overall reaction, the volume of thoracic cavity increases. Volume of thoracic cavity increases. That means air pressure becomes low. Automatic air comes and rush into the lungs. Next, what happens? Again, this sternum will comes down and slightly inside. Means just again this and this abdomen relaxed and become dome shape. Ultimately, the result is volume of lungs or thoracic cavity decreases. If the volume of thoracic cavity decreases, it means the pressure of air inside the lungs increases. Okay, so this air will move outside or exhaled outside the body. So this is the movement of the air or breathing of the human beings. It the abdominal muscles and intercostal muscles helps to increase the volume or decrease the volume of thoracic cavity, and likewise increasing or decreasing the volume of thoracic cavity, increasing and decreasing the air pressure, and likewise inhaling and exhaling. Thank you. Today we have discussed regarding the respiration. In next class, we will discuss regarding the circulation. Thank you. Have a nice day.